Businesses that track their sales pipeline are 33% more likely to hit revenue targets. So the real question is, do you actually know what's in your sales pipeline? Probably not. So let's fix that. So if y'all don't already know me, my name is Robb Quinn. I did 6 President's Clubs in sales offline, B2B, door-to-door, and B2C by the time I was 25. Built my first $1 million company at 28, and then built our first 8-figure company at 30. And I'm dropping you guys all the info we use to be able to accomplish all those things here on this channel. So if you're tired of inconsistent revenue and you're really not sure like where your next deal is coming from, what I'm gonna show you in this video is exactly how you can make sure you know where the next deal is coming from and to make the most out of every single lead that you have coming in to your pipeline, your CRM. This is the same system that we've used to help hundreds of different businesses and thousands of sales reps be able to generate millions of dollars a year within that company, and I'm gonna give it all to you by the end of this. So make sure you watch all the way through, and I got something for you at the end. First off, can we just say this? It is crazy how many sales reps do not track their pipeline at all, or even solopreneurs, right? If it's like you own a business and you're like doing all the sales and all the other stuff, it is crazy to me how many of them do not track their sales pipeline or track their activity and their data for what they do on a daily basis to even land a deal. So let's just go over like the common issues with this, okay, that I see on a regular basis. Number one, they have no lead source strategy. So they don't have like leads even coming in. They have no opportunity to even talk to anybody. You can't sell an empty seat. So they've got a lead source problem. Number two, prospects are always falling through the cracks. They get a good conversation or at least a decent conversation, and then they never talk to that person again. Not because they didn't want to, but because they were just unorganized. Third, they have no visibility over their conversion stages. They don't know what stage the actual prospect is in within the buying cycle, so they can't address them correctly at each stage that they're at. There's a quote that we have, and it's what gets measured gets managed. And if you can't measure it, you can't scale it. At the end of the day, man, this is a numbers game. Not so much a numbers game as much as a know your numbers game. If you know your numbers, you can fixate all of your time, energy, and resources around the one thing within the numbers that will drive the needle the most with the least amount of time, energy, and resources, but you have to know the numbers. So let's just break down the components of like a winning pipeline. Number one, you have to know where the leads are coming from. You have to know your traffic sources. You're gonna wanna address the traffic sources differently because they have different levels of intent, different stages of awareness. For example, let's say you get a lead off of TikTok, right? So that lead has a much shorter attention span based on the nature of the platform you get that inbound traffic from. But let's say also you have like an outbound team. Maybe you're going out doing cold outreach in Facebook groups, cold calling Google leads, doing cold email with an automation, doing LinkedIn automation, things of that nature, right? Those are all gonna be much colder leads as well because you're going out of your way to ask them if they want to talk to you. Even the TikTok lead is typically going to be better than that if it's inbound traffic because yes, the attention span is shorter, so the intent typically isn't as high, but at least they raised their hand from seeing your ad and they said, you know what, I'm interested in your thing. So you got to be able to know the intent of the lead source so you address them differently. It's going to be a different sales workflow. If you're running paid traffic through like Facebook or YouTube, those leads are much better. For example, you are watching this video right now. And at this point, it's already what, maybe 5-7 minutes into the video. So you're a more educated prospect than somebody that would just opt in on my TikTok account from an ad if they never met me before. Does that make sense? Next is lead qualification. Who is worth your time? As you start to scale this thing up, it's important to make sure that you can start segmenting the levels of interest. If somebody is going to be a much hotter buyer and you're starting to build a sales team, why on earth would you send that person to a brand new sales rep? Doesn't make any sense, right? So at that point in your business where you are starting to qualify further with additional friction on the front end, maybe you're adding in questions during the opt-in page where you have like a phone number, an email, a name, then maybe you're going to book the call, you have additional qualifying questions there, and then maybe there are certain like financial qualifying questions that basically say either they shouldn't talk to anyone on your team, you want to send them like a free lead magnet or something, or they're going to go to a certain team that's going to sell a lower ticket product versus going to a different team that'll sell your higher ticket product. That's called lead segmentation. So you want to know who's worth your time to talk to and who should be talking to that person and for what type of thing. Next is pipeline stages. I see this done wrong way too much. Okay, so it's important to understand the buyer's journey, where they're at in the sales cycle. So when you set up your pipeline stages, which is gonna be in the CRM, from the time that the lead hits the CRM, they're gonna fall into what's called a new lead stage. So your pipeline is gonna be a series of stages. You're gonna have all the stages we're gonna go through right now, that'll be within a pipeline that maybe you wanna label, Facebook traffic or Instagram traffic, or maybe you label it by the product. And then you're tagging inside of the stages what traffic source it came from. So you could have a pipeline that is called, like for us, the art of sales, right? That's one of our programs where we help sales reps graduate from our sales school and get placed into incredible offers in the high ticket sales industry. So if we have a pipeline that's called art of sales, and within that pipeline, we have the stages I'm about to go over with you right now. When a new lead comes in, whether it came from TikTok traffic, outbound VA team doing cold outreach, Facebook traffic, YouTube organic or paid ads, whatever it might be, it's gonna fall into that new lead pipeline. It's gonna rotate to a closer, that's called a round robin. So each setter or each closer will get their leads, and then it'll be tagged with a traffic source, right? So whether it came from one of those traffic sources or the other. So that will all fall in that stage under the same pipeline. So this way you can at least know where it came from. The next stage in the pipeline is gonna be reached out. So the reached out stage is where you've gone from new lead, you move them over to that stage after you've made an attempt to get a hold of them, whether that be a text message, whether that be a phone call. A lot of the time when businesses set this up, they're going to have an automation that goes out, and when that person responds in the new lead channel to that automation, it'll automatically move them over to the reached out column. So whether you're doing it manually or you're automating it, it needs to go into that stage next. And after that stage, if they're in communication with you, so let's say they respond to that message, it's gonna go into the next stage, which is gonna be called in conversation. So now we've got new lead that has gone to reached out, that has gone to in conversation, meaning that you are currently in the process of trying to book that person onto a sales call or to disqualify them because they shouldn't ever be talking to anyone at any point in time, ever. So after you've gone through that vetting process through either a phone call or in text messages with the prospect, and you book them on a sales call, you're gonna move them into the booked stage in your pipeline. So this will come after the in conversation stage because now they're qualified and you've booked them onto a closer's calendar. So the goal from here is that we want to get them onto a connected call with a closer. From there, the next phase is going to happen. Either they're going to show up to the sales call or they're not going to show up to the sales call. So if they don't show up to the sales call, we're going to move them into the next stage of the pipeline, which is called no-show. Okay. So now after we got the booked call, it's going to either no-show or it's going to showed. So those are gonna be two separate stages. You're gonna have no-show and you're gonna have a showed column. So if they show up and connect to the sales call with the closer, they're gonna move into a showed column. The last stage is going to be close. So if that deal closes, it's gonna be moved into a close stage. So this way the CRM can calculate, obviously the deal value and how much that closed for. That's gonna help keep your CRM organized with the actual real value per client that's closed, making all of your data line up. You also wanna be able to filter this data by day, by week, and by month. So this is gonna show you trends. This is important for the future, but it's also important to make sure that you're keeping track of what's going on a day-to-day basis. It's not that you change everything every time you see something that looks like what's referred to as a discrepancy, which is gonna be like that number looks different than what I'm used to seeing that number look like. That's a discrepancy. And you wanna be able to know, should I address this? Or there's some other variables that kind of led that to happen. So it's actually a one-off situation, not worth addressing because it's unlikely that that will happen again. If it does happen again, it'll be really infrequent. So it's not actually worth addressing. On the other hand, if it does need to be addressed, you'll know that, you'll see that discrepancy, and then you can go in and deep dive that specific metric for what's happening and then find a solution to that based off of, all the different variables that you're seeing create that outcome. Next is conversion rates. You got to know what your baseline metric is for conversion. So for example, if you're just running paid traffic and you're like, let's go make some money and close some deals, you're probably gonna lose a lot of money. And so what you want to do is make sure when you run the traffic, paid traffic, or wherever you're getting leads from, you need to make sure when they fall into your sales workflow, which is like the pipeline stages we're going over right now, you need to have minimum. So for us, for example, every time we get a new lead in, we want to see if they don't auto book themselves in to a sales call, which has its own metrics on the marketing side. We want to see that our appointment setters are booking at least 25% of all those new leads onto a sales call every month. Now, granted, they are going to be booking old leads as well, and our reactivation campaigns, which are automations, they actually trigger every 18 days whenever a new lead that has been sitting in the pipeline hasn't been activated by a setter or anything else, because we have a lot of leads. A reactivation campaign will automatically send a message to that person to try to get them to respond, which will move them into the in conversation stage in the pipeline. So it's important to make sure that you're doing this step and having baseline metrics for each individual metric so you know what's working and what's not. Because then the game just becomes a game of math. And as long as it's performing to those minimum baselines, you need to be focusing all your time around the things that are not at least at that baseline number, and not just focusing on things that you can make better because you have a good understanding of it. And lastly, the follow-up system. Nurturing a lead is king. We're at a stage now where it used to actually be easier when you follow up with a lead. You have to reach out to them like 7 times or 7 different touch points. That was easy. Now you can actually Google this up and look at it. I think it's somewhere like 18 touch points, which is why you want to make sure that you're nurturing people correctly at the right stages of their sales cycle. If somebody's a new lead and they're at earlier stages of awareness, I'm not going to send them our price points, right? I want to send them things that are going to educate them depending where they're at, either on the industry itself or on how we're different from other people, depending on their stage of awareness. So you want to make sure that you're helping people, moving people along their train of thought, but depending on where they're at with their current knowledge of the market. This is something referred to as controlling consumption. You already know they're going to be looking this stuff up on their own. So it is your goal, your job as a sales rep, to make sure that you're controlling the consumption of what they see at the pace you want them to see it, and meeting them where they are based on their current stages of awareness in the market. So what I'm actually going to do for you below this video, I'm gonna attach a link, so this way you can grab our tracking sheet to actually track individual metrics of your activity. This is super, super important. So go down there, grab that real quick. You'll have to enter like a name and phone number, email, or whatever. Our team will probably reach out to you too, so you get to experience this system. But this way you have something to track your activity with, so you can actually see activity data. It's different from a CRM. A CRM tracks stages in a pipeline. A tracking sheet will track your activity. So I'll do a separate video on that. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so this way you can see when that next video comes out. But I'll do a video on actually going over the entire tracking sheet. So to wrap this video up, talking about pipeline stages and managing a pipeline, seeing how much money is in your pipeline, these are the things that you're gonna want if you wanna make sure that you're getting more output, meaning a better result, out of your efforts, which is referred to as input. So if you wanna get more output out of your input, it's not always just getting better at your skill. A lot of the time, it's getting better at understanding the sales workflow and managing the sales cycle within your CRM with all the leads. Number 1, you've got to track everything, all your KPIs. Number 2, you have to know the stages of your pipeline, which we just covered all that. If you need to listen to all those again, just rewind the video. Number 3, you need to reverse engineer your goals. If you wanna make 100 grand a month as a business, then you need to reverse engineer how many sales that you need per day, and then based on your average cash collected at the point of sale and based on your price point. So for example, if you have a $10,000 product, and let's say that at the point of sale, you're collecting 50% of that, that means you collect $5,000 at the point of sale. Let's say that your show rate is 50%. Let's say that your close rate is 20%. You'll be able to do the math on how many sales calls you need per day to get at least, one sale, and that would equate one sale a day. If you're working 5 days a week, would equate to $100,000 a month, right? $5,000 collected at the point of sale times 5 days a week is $25,000 a week. If you're working for 5 days, multiply that by 4 weeks in the month, that equals $100,000. So if you want to figure out how to get one sale a day, and you have 50% of your calls show up, then you can do that math if you're closing at 20%. Okay, that means that you need at least 5 calls to show up if you want to be able to close at least one deal a day. And if you have a 50% show rate, that means you need to book 10 sales calls a day to get 5 to show up, so you close one deal to be able to collect at least $5,000 at the point of sale. Do that 5 days a week. That's how you hit $100,000 in a month. So then the question becomes, how can I get 10 sales calls a day on the calendar? You'll likely need 2 closers, but even then the math probably wouldn't add up because 1 closer isn't taking 10 sales calls a day. So you're actually splitting that number up. So you can kind of see how that math plays out. We'll cover all of that in a different video when it looks like to build a team and that dynamic of taking sales calls. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. Lastly, you need to build your follow-up process. So we talked about that earlier here too, but if you don't have a follow-up process, that is a little different depending on the traffic source and the intent and awareness of that traffic source. Spend some time putting that together. We might actually do a separate video on how to put together different follow-up sequences. So let me know in the comments if that would be valuable for you, but likely we'll do that because that's a big miss I see on teams. So if you're serious about building your team, building your revenue, hitting record months, like I said, down below, I'll put this in the description. I'll have some other resource links too, but I'll make sure that you guys can download for free our tracking sheets to at least start tracking your activity. Depending when this video is made, I might also include our pipeline as well, so this way you can just download that into your CRM based on the CRM we're currently using. So like automations, stages, all that will already be pre-built. So if you don't see that underneath this video, maybe check back in about a month or 2 and you should find it. And if you want more like in-depth tactical training, like things like that, make sure that you're subscribing to my channel, hitting the bell, because we put out videos on things like how to do outbound DMs, how to be able to close deals, how to be able to manage teams, how to be able to do this thing and that thing, and everything you're gonna need to make your team better or make yourself better as a sales rep. So just make sure you do that. You could also follow me on Instagram at official Robb Quinn. Again, I'll put these links in the description, but man, I try to like communicate with everybody in the DMs on my Instagram, show behind the scenes of my life, and really just share a lot of tips around how you can just, make more money as a sales rep and make more money on your sales team by building infrastructure and culture in a way that supports growth. And that's all we got for you in this video. So until next time, I'll catch you guys and happy selling.